doppelganger cut, repulsed, and lunged. He swung the sword horizontally, vertically, and diagonally. Shining had to shift himself to meet these blows. He had to bring his shadows to block the deadly blade. Those times when he could not change his stance quickly enough. Those times when he was a little slower than his doppelganger, he would stumble. He would be forced to take a step back, to maintain his defense. At the same time, sacrifice his own opportunity to attack. He was being beaten back. With every inch, he gave up only when his doppelganger more confidence. The blows were coming faster and more wildly. The sword was swinging through the air, like it was being carried by a tornado, spinning and whirling so fast, Shining almost had no hope of blasting it away. He had to turn his magic on his opponent. He had to try and knock his nightmare copy off balance, and take the offensive himself. But the doppelganger was no real pony, of flesh and blood who would at least cringe when blasted with magic. He was part of the nightmare. He was striking out the blasts as if they were nothing. He took a blow to the shoulder, and all he succeeded in doing was singeing his fur. He took a blast to the knee, and the doppelganger only got angrier, and began swinging his sword with greater lethal purpose. The fight was looking bleaker as it went on. Shiny didn't know what would happen if he let himself get beat while he was a visitor in Nyx's dream. Truthfully, he didn't want to find out. But the situation only grew more dire as he was forced back by his nightmare clone. He kept having to take steps back, kept having to move away and reset his stance so he might defend against the doppelganger's assault. He kept moving back. He kept stepping back until there was nowhere else to go. The doppelganger swung wide, a horizontal slash. Shining shifted his shoulder shield. It took the brunt, but the force behind the blow made him stumble. He tried to take just one more step back, but felt his hind hoof miss the ground and fall down. He yelped and fell back as his three other hoofs struggled to keep him upright. He dared to look back and saw a long fall. He had been back into the tower, to one of the great windows that the bell with his picture hung from. It was the same place their fight had started, the pair having made several full circles across the tower's upper floor. He pawed at the ledge with his back hoof, trying to pull himself back up from the ledge. He, however, wouldn't be given the chance. A flash of movement in the periphery of his vision made Shining Armor look up. His doppelganger had raised his sword to his side and was now swinging it. It cut through the air, his path set to make it sink into the side of Shining Armor's head. There was no time to raise his shoulder shields, no time to conjure another spell. He could not look back up either. There was nowhere else to back up to, so he did the only thing he could do. He ducked, brought his head down, getting it below the blade just as it swung through the air above him. He felt the sharp edge brush against his mane, even cutting some of the strands of hair. It then continued on, swinging through the air until it came to an abrupt stop. With a mighty clang, the sword struck his bell, causing it to ring out its singular note. Shining Armor had to wince and flatten his ears at the loud tone, which threatened to deafen him with its volume. But his pain seemed minor compared to what his doppelganger was experiencing. The Shining Armor of Nyx's nightmare had stumbled away, dropping his sword as he placed both hooves against his ears. He was screaming as if he was trying to drone out the tone of the bell with his own voice. It was a chance Shining Armor had been looking for. With a grunt, he hauled his hind hoof back up and caught all four of his hooves on the ground. The bell was still ringing, giving him a few precious moments of protection from his attacker. And at that time, his eyes went to the ground. He looked and quickly found the rope his doppelganger had cut. He quickly levitated up towards where he had been tied to the bell. He began to secure the knot as the bell's ringing faded. His doppelganger began to recover, stumbling as he levitated his sword. Shining heard the scream, a shout of hated words. His intuition as a soldier telling him to turn and face the attacker that was undoubtedly bearing down on him. But he did not. He finished tying the rope in place, and then gave it a single, firm tug. The bell that bore his picture swung up in a grand arc. Its pendulum, like a clapper, crashed onto its side, and the bell gave up its note once more. His doppelganger screamed and fell to the floor, writhing in pain from the sound of the bell. But Shining Armor continued to ring the bell. Down below, the tolling of the bell brought silence to the angry crowd. They all looked up, and Nyx too turned her eyes up towards her. They all watched and listened to the bell as it swung and sang in the empty night of Nyx's dream.
The bell. It's...
Shining Armor smiled. As he looked back at the dream, Twilight climbed up the last few steps that connected the top level of the bell tower to the one below. The chains that had been around her neck were gone, and the tone of her voice less manic. "That's right, Twilight!" Shining shouted, before pointing with his hoof. "We're playing a song with the bells. Why don't you grab that rope over there and help?" The dream Twilight turned, looking to the rope, the following up to where it connected with the tower's largest bell, the one that hung above them, and bore her image on its interior. She stared at it for a few good seconds. A smile then spread on her lips as her horn glowed. She took hold of the rope in a spell and pulled it. The bell above them rang out its note, its large size making it twice as loud as Shining Armor's. Still, the two bells did not fight for dominance. Like members of a choir, their voices began to fuse together in a pleasing harmony. "That's it! That's it!" Shining cheered, ignoring the rising screams of his doppelganger, as he ran to the edge of the tower and looked down at the crowd below. "Hey, everybody! Come up to the tower!" The crowd, which had been shouting and throwing snowballs and raids, seemed to have calmed down. They did as they were asked, filing through the door and climbing up its steps. Shining Armor met them at the top, began directing each pony to the bell that carried their picture. And with each bell that joined the harmony, the more smiles Shining Armor began to see. The air was growing warmer. The darkness that was surrounding the tower was lightening. First to a dull gray, but it was on its way to being a pristine clear white. And below, the gallows that Nyx had been standing on were disappearing. They were turning to snow and disappearing on the wind. And as all the bells began to play together, the ponies in Nyx's dream began to sing. Their voices joined in harmony. It was a joyous sound, one that filled the area and made every pony smile as they sang. Even Shining Armor joined in, unable to deny the energy, as he looked around and saw his family on the top floor of the bell tower, each pulling at the rope of their own bell. Twilight, Cadence, Nightlight, Twilight Velvet, they were all there. Or maybe it was more like he was now there with them. Yes, that was it. They had been trying to make it a happy heartwarming. They had been willing to accept Nyx. This wasn't something he had started. They had always been singing the songs and enjoying the holiday. He was just joining in. And he did join in. He raised his voice with the others and sang as loud as his lungs would allow. "The fire of friendship lives in our hearts. As long as it burns, we cannot drift apart. Though quarrels arise, the numbers are few. Laughter and singing will see us through. We are a circle of pony friends, a circle of friends we will be to the very end." On the final tolling of the bells, Shining's eyes became blinded by white. The light seemed to be coming from everywhere. And for a moment, he couldn't feel his hooves against the ground. But then the dream began to come back in focus. He was standing in the snow again, no longer inside a tower. He instead found himself sitting in the middle of a street in Canterlot, looking at a modestly sized bell tower that was playing the heartwarming carol. None of the other ponies that had been playing the bells with him were anywhere to be seen. They had all vanished, but he wasn't alone either. There was one pony who was there with him in the empty street. She was sitting, looking up at the tower as he was. She didn't even notice he was there. A fact Shining Armor quickly changed as he came up behind her. "Nyx, we've been looking everywhere for you." Nyx turned her head quickly to look back at Shining, who sat down beside her. She was looking at him in confusion, like she almost didn't even recognize him. Then again, she had never seen him when he was smiling at her.
You've been looking for me?"
"Every pony has," Shining Armor answered cheerfully. "Twilight, Cadence, Mom, Dad, Applejack, Rarity, Pinkie Pie, Fluttershy, Rainbow Dash, and even the princesses have been helping."
"But you've been helping them?"
Shining Armor nodded. "I have. I've been helping Princess Luna. We even managed to catch the pony who chased you on the catwalks."
"But..."
Nyx lifted a hoof and pointed at Shining Armor's nose.
"You've been helping looking for me. I thought..."
I know. Shining Armor said. He lowered himself down, ignoring the chill of snow on his stomach, as he laid down on the street. Nix, I'm sorry for everything I've said and done in the past few days. I know that you haven't been doing anything to purposely try and hurt Twilight, and I'm sorry for ever suspecting you. But I'm also sorry about what you overheard me say. I don't know for sure what that spell did to Twilight's blood, if it did anything at all, but
I know what it did.
Nick said as he looked down at her hooves before she kicked a little bit of snow.
I found Spell Nexus and asked him. He didn't put a spell on Twilight or anything.
So that's where you went, Shining Armor said before smiling. Still, that's good news, isn't it? You've proved me wrong.
Yeah, I guess.
Then what's wrong?
I just...
She sighed, using her hoof to draw a circle in the snow.
Lumberjack made me think that the spell in the spell made me Twilight's real daughter. But Spell Nexus says that wasn't right. He said that Twilight's blood was just food for me.
How could it have been food?
I don't know.
Nix whined, before kicking at the lopsided circles he had drawn.
He was being really confusing. Then he wouldn't talk to me anymore. He just wished I would go away.
Listen, I'm not the only one having trouble being nice. His heart's warming, Shining whispered, before using her hoof to raise Nix's chin. Listen, if what Spell Nexus said is true, then that only means you aren't Twilight's biological daughter. That doesn't mean you aren't her real daughter.
Yes, it does.
No, it doesn't, Shining argued, keeping his tone chipper and a smile on his face. Being related to somebody else by blood isn't what makes a family. All that matters is that you care about one another. Just look at your Aunt Cadence. She isn't related by blood to me or any pony in my family, but we still consider her family.
Just because she's your wife.
Exactly, Sai said with a single firm nod. We're husband and wife. Cadence and I love each other so much that we wanted to become part of the same family. And that's what Twilight did for you in a way. Do you remember earlier this year, when Twilight took a trip to Canterlot and left you at home with Spike? Nix nodded.
Yeah, I remember. That was the weekend Granny Smith put me under an apple basket.
Okay, yes, that weekend, he confirmed, though he had no idea whether they were truly talking about the same few days. Did Twilight tell you she was doing a Canterlot?
She was filing paperwork to adopt me.
Shining Armor nodded and smiled. That's how much she cares, Nix. She loves you so much. She didn't want any pony to be able to take you away from her. She wanted you and every pony else to know that she sees herself as your mother, that you are her daughter. That's why she filled out the adoption forms, even after Princess Luna had decreed you were to stay with her. Because she wants to be your real mother. Nix huffed as she sifted in her hooves.
So, some paper says I'm Twilight's real daughter?
Legally, yes. And legally, that's all that really says that Cadence and I are married. But it's more than that. Getting married, filing for adoptions, they aren't what make ponies a real family. That's what comes afterwards. What really defines a family is the love they share and the time they spend together. Shiny gave Nix a gentle nudge, getting her to look at him. Haven't you had some good times while you were here in Canterlot?